Elevation Nation. Tonight on the podcast, or today, whatever time you're listening, we are talking all about your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, physical, mental, a holistic wellness, some might say, with the one and only Christian Van Camp of CVC Wellness. We're very excited to have you on the podcast to share with us a little bit more about what holistic wellness is, how to keep your life in balance as a young 20-something-year-old, and really just how to feel healthy, good, and positive about who you are and where you're going each and every day. So, Christian, welcome to Elevation Nation, man. We are so stoked that you are here with us.
Mr. Sam, Mr. Parker, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Super pumped for this conversation, Christian. I'm reading on your website right now. First of all, kudos to the person who made it. If it was you, claps to you. If it was someone else, claps to whoever made it, because it's dope. But I just want to read this little snippet from your website. Christian wakes up every day doing what he loves. Cold shower, breath work, whipping up a piping hot cup of organic coffee with grass-fed ghee, movement, client check-ins, journaling, and grounding barefoot in the fresh air and sunshine. I love that. First of all, cold showers are awesome. Second of all, Elevation Nation, we have a treat in store. So, Christian, we are pumped to have you on the podcast.
Heck yeah, man. Let's let loose. Let's have fun.
I'm hyped. So, Christian, this is Elevation Nation. Obviously, Parker and I, we've done our research. We know a little bit about you. But for Elevation Nation, can you give them your elevator pitch to start us off?
Oh, man, it's so multifactorial. Where do I start with this, guys? Well, so I'm a little bit of the history books. We'll dive into that real quick. Basically, my passion that erupted into the fitness, the health, holistic in its totality. What got me into all that? Well, a lot of it stemmed from outside of me, primarily around my family's traumas. And I don't even like using the word trauma, because if we label stuff as a trauma, we're still holding on to it as if it's, still lingering on in our heart, right? And so it's something that I have overcome, and I look at it differently. But my little sister Nina was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. It's basically like a two-chambered heart. So one of her ventricles was practically completely filled up with muscle. And so most of us humans, we have four chambers. We have the atrium, we have the ventricles. She basically only had one chamber that was working in her, one ventricle that was working. And so her blood flow was horrible throughout her whole life. She was constantly having chronic fatigue and always going in and out of the hospital, having multiple procedures a year. And it was super hard being her older brother, just a few years older than her, just seeing her always deal with these issues. I remember just traveling to the Smoky Mountains one year, and we were, enjoying the pool time, and it was 75 degrees out. It was real nice. It was sunny, but her lips got real dark purple within 10 minutes of being out there because her blood flow was so weak. And so my mom would be like, "Hey, get out of the water, Nina. This is serious." So it was a common theme in our family. And eventually, in Christmas Day of 2013, she was administered in the hospital with pneumonia and all these issues just erupting out of the blue. Literally Christmas Eve. And my family, we're all just worried sick, what is going on? This is strange. Maybe it's just she just needs a little stent fix or something. She was in the hospital for 3 months, guys, on a hospital bed. Imagine our lives right now just totally shutting down what we're doing with our friends. We're shutting down everything. We're just no, your life is on a cliff's edge right now. And at any moment you can jump off and, you're done from this earth. And for 2 months, we're kind of figuring out what's going on with her, trying to battle around it. And then eventually the doctors are she needs a new heart or she's going to pass away. And within a week, by God's blessings, someone with her blood type passed away in our country. And it was a strong man like you and me, Sam and Parker. And that heart is now pumping in her body. So I am a huge advocate of donating life, of sharing your blessings of your organs after you pass from this earth. And that, seeing her trying to get back on her feet after being sub 100 pounds, losing 40, 50 pounds while the 3 months in the hospital bed, she had to get equipped again and on her feet from nourishing foods, from movement, trying to rebuild her muscle because she was so skinny, from proper, overall proper nutrition, getting back into nature, just fundamental things as human beings we need. And seeing her progress over the years, she's doing wonderful now. That's 8 years ago this happened. So in March of 2014, she had the heart transplant. she is my number one inspiration. And today she still battles a lot of fatigue and things that happen. And, it makes me appreciate that I have no excuse. I have gone the majority of my life not having any serious health ailments. I mean, there was one time I was constipated for 7 days. I'll say that. I'll go into that story in a second, but that is something we'll go into in a second that inspired me. But yeah, just knowing that I never had any real, congenital issue. I wasn't born with anything. I never had a real excuse. I could make excuses, as we all do as humans, as we all do as, young people growing up. We're always making excuses about things because a lot of things are handed to us nowadays. But she had no excuse, guys. She was born with a really poor regulated heart, and she went through and suffered through all of that. And her childhood was all messed up. It's just, that makes me appreciate that I have the full capacity to be as optimized as I literally can be, as much as I can be. So that's what guided me into being a coach. The majority of that, obviously, it's multifactorial. And so now we'll dive into my constipation story. So basically, there was one weekend every single year I go on this Father's Day float trip with my dad, and we went on canoe trips. We were having a bunch of beef jerky, drinking beer, and all this stuff. And this is when I'm like 17 years old, and obviously underage. Okay, so let's get over that. But we're having a good time, and the whole majority of the weekend I had potatoes, I had meat, I had all that stuff. And when I got home after the trip, I was not pooping as days kept going by, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm getting concerned here. And eventually I go in and get a colonoscopy as a young kid. It was the most awkward situation ever. I tried hydrotherapy. I tried acupuncture. I got into a lot of natural healing before I went into the medicines, right? And so I also had a very horrible experience on some of the medications, some of the laxatives. And so there's many reasons that I'm into natural health for that reason as well. But that's just a little snippet right there of my crazy health journey.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, first of all, I'm glad that your sister is doing better now, and I can't even imagine being along that journey and having to see that as you're growing up as well, and seeing your sister, someone you closely love so much, go through that. What was that like for you in terms of being next to her and seeing her going through that? But when did it actually spark in your head that, like, wow, like this is my sister, and like now I kind of want to center my life around learning more about human nutrition?
Yeah, like the pinnacle turn point truly didn't happen until we were informed about her needing a heart transplant. That was kind of like when I was like, holy crap. Like, for the 2 months we kind of had high expectations she'd be out of the hospital, and we kept being positive about it, but we also had that worrisome overwhelming us. And yeah, when we heard that, I was just like, this is a massive procedure. I mean, this is changing a complete engine in a car, but you're trying to do this in a human being, right? Like, all the intricate veins, all the arteries, like totally foreign from your body. And so that's another beautiful aspect of it, is like the medical system being able to have what's available at our fingertips, the technology to have anti-rejection pills and things like that. That's so profound to think that our immune system wants to target this, but we're taking something to prevent that from happening. So that's just another story. But that really made me just appreciate right then and there, like, wow, she is going through a massive shift. Like, her whole physical body, her spiritual body, her mental, her emotional, everything is shifting in her life. And I immediately just started getting a lot more integrated into fitness. And right at that point, I was still in high school, running track and field, playing soccer. And that's when I started getting into weightlifting right there, because I was like, okay, like, let's start building my scrawny butt, let's start putting some muscle on. I think that's important. So that inspired me to start hitting weights and almost take this, like, it was almost like a form of anger I was taking out in my physical body and tearing it up. And it was like converting that negative energy into a positive. Like, why does my sister have to go through this? Like, it was like an anger more than it was a sadness. Like, why? She doesn't deserve this. She's the sweetest angel on this planet. She's so kind, so giving, so sweet, never was judgmental. Why the fuck is she going through this? And if I'm cussing, I apologize. But it's like one of those things.
No, that's good.
it's just one of those things that it ate me up. And so started directing that towards positive energy, weightlifting. And as my fitness progressed, I went to community college for 2 years. I studied kinesiology for a year. And then I was like, nutrition's really where it's at, because if we can get the fundamentals down of our actual biology, which is created from food, and we hear it all the time, you are what you eat. And I started realizing that, like, my performance in the gym was not as good as it should be because my diet was filled with Pop-Tarts and things like that as a pre-workout. And so eventually I realized, wow, there's a lot of other avenues we can take and grow with nutrition. So it was crazy profound from there on.
So let's talk a little bit, Christian, about what holistic wellness even means, right? Maybe that's a buzzword that some folks have heard before, but can you break it down for us in a simple way so Elevation Nation can kind of understand that?
Yeah, it is a buzzword. It is something that's thrown out quite a bit. In my perspective, holistic means having balance and having grasp on all aspects of life. And it's literally being able to connect and coincide everything from your spiritual, your emotional, your financial, your environmental, every segment you can imagine. And so if you guys look online, you could type in the 8 wellness dimensions, right? There's a circle that creates the wellness wheel, I like to call it. And if we take one of those little dimensions out, well, it's kind of like a bicycle. If we're riding on a bike and we just take out a big slice of it, like as if it's a pizza, just slice it off. You kind of roll and you're smooth, and all of a sudden you hit a rivet and you're like, oh God, it's bumpy. Oh God, it's bumpy. That could be, okay, your financial wellness. So everything else is great. Your spiritual, your environmental, your social, your intellectual, everything's great. Your physical, right? But then you have that layer of financial that comes in every once in a while and it knocks you out. And that's that holistic perspective that we really embody and live with all these different dimensions, and we live it to the fullest as much as possible with that balance.
So you're saying that, hypothetically, if we break this down even further, everything is in check, financially, physical, mental, but maybe from a spiritual standpoint, I don't know, maybe someone close to me passed away, right? Or something bad happened. And, I'm practicing, I'm a practicing Jew, and, now I'm questioning, like, my religion. And I'm questioning this. So you're saying with holistic wellness, when one thing's out of balance, everything else is going to be out of balance?
In many ways, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Parker. It's something that it's hard to decipher because there's so many pieces to our life that make up who we are. We're fully integrated human beings, right? There's so many aspects to what define us. And so, it goes in so many layers, but truly going off of that, I think if we make the foundation our physical health, that is something we can have the most control over, I believe. Our financial, we can have control over all these different things. But if we can really take control of our physical health through proper nutrition and fitness, then our emotional health will begin to heal a little bit more. Our financial health may actually go up due to our occupation, be more in line with the health of our body and our vibrancy coming out. So I truly believe that our physical is one of the most paramount aspects of the wellness wheel. Obviously, they all are even. I'm not saying they aren't even. But yes, they all play a massive role on one another.
So let's go even further. Let's break this down for you, Christian, when you first found this wheel. Could you maybe tell Elevation Nation some of the components in your life that were, I guess, related to the wheel, just so I have a better understanding of that? And Elevation Nation, more importantly.
Yeah, right. Man, so my personal story with it, I'd say, for the most part, going off what I said earlier, my physical health has always been pretty good and never really had issues with it. However, this goes right off of that. I was not as much spiritually in tune. I didn't really know who I was or my higher purpose. I didn't really define my core values. I didn't really, obviously I was growing up. We all get this feeling, but when you're in your late teens, your early 20s, you're confused, right? You're trying to relate to everything around you and try to adhere to everything around you. You become a sponge. And so you start picking up things that aren't necessarily in line with what you really believe. And so my spiritual wellness for that reason was kind of suffering. It was kind of something I didn't really understand who I was on this planet, what I was, what is God. I was asking all those philosophical questions, and I began to get a little bit more stoic with things. And stoicism is something we can dive into later. But spiritual health is one thing, right? And my emotional health as well. I grew up with a pretty firm father for the most part. We all have been there, not really expressing their emotions, kind of just being like, hey, you getting work done? Hey, you focused on that? Hey, you doing all that stuff? You're doing stuff more than being, right? Because we're human beings, not human doings. And I think our masculine father tends to lean towards more the doing aspect of things. And so my emotional health was kind of wonky as well. It was something I always never really knew what to cry about, right? And as I became more in tune with that over the years, it's definitely helped balance out the other aspects. So, there's many layers to it. I think I've had some financial troubles from going to school and getting my nutrition degree that created some troubles as well. And so it all throws it off, but it's so multifactorial going back to that it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing.
Well, I truly believe in those different factors impacting you and having an impact and being connected to each other. We just had a guest on a couple weeks ago, Christian, a friend of mine named Miles Robertson, who went through an Ayurvedic medicine retreat in Iowa, talking about, some of those different types of, ancient Indian medical practices and how, they were on an all-vegetarian diet for a little while and trying to cleanse his body and doing massages and meditation. It's like, I believe at least that in our modern day society, it is becoming increasingly difficult to have balance across those 8 factors in the wheel, because it's very, very easy to either be focused on one or none, or sacrifice and cut out because you don't have enough time or you can't focus, right? And I think it's unfortunate, but true in our modern day society that a lot of people see sacrifices or a lack of perfect balance as just something they accept as living in 2022. And I hope that hearing your story and similar stories to that of yours, people can realize that no, in 2022, you can take a step back, cleanse your life, reevaluate, reprioritize, and hopefully come into more balance without necessarily going backwards. I think that's maybe what people are scared of, either going outside their comfort zone or going backwards when they make these sacrifices to, quote unquote, improve their holistic health and well-being. They're scared that they're going to go backwards or maybe digress or make mistakes or be uncomfortable. But the benefits are all there. And I'm absolutely fascinated with this concept, which is why I'm so excited to dive into it a little bit more with you, which kind of brings me to my next question about lifestyle, right? We're all young men talking pretty introspectively about the 8 factors of holistic wellness as a whole. How do you think the rest of society looks at this balance of holistic wellness? And why do you think that so many people are a little bit out of whack?
I think for the most part, people don't even know what that means. They hear the word holistic and it's something that I'm so used to that when I throw it around, I'm like, I know what it means. I forget. I get a little myopic about my verbiage. And so I think truly it's just making it clear that you're not focused on the systems approach and just making people understand this isn't system health. This is holistic health. So, holistic health even goes beyond the wellness wheel. It goes into understanding your whole body is connected, right? So your hormonal system directly affects your nervous system. Your nervous system affects your muscular system. All these things are interconnected. So we can't just look at them as systems. And I think that's the best thing we can explain. It's just what I did right there is making that clear to people and they would understand that right away. They're like, oh shit, that is true, And so I'd say, being able to make something like a holistic approach grow for individuals is by living and breathing it. Actions speak louder than words. I think if you're truly deep into, health, or you're wanting to get into health, you're wanting to get into fitness, that's something each and every human being on this planet is attracted to. We all want to live healthy. Like, there's no doubt. Some of us try to make it seem like we don't by bragging about the health choices we make, or talking about how we skipped our workout, or we're like, we had the Chick-fil-A the other day. It's like, no, that's not something to brag about. Like, that's just an insecurity arising, of course. And so I think deep rooted in every one of us, we want to live a healthy, prosperous life and a fit life, right? Functional life. And so I think just speaking that through your daily actions is really what gets people attracted to what you're doing and how you're living. It's not, boasting about it. It's not talking about, I went to the gym 5 times a week, this week. It's like, no one wants to hear that. They want to know that you're doing that by saying, oh yeah, I went to the gym today. Did you go? Getting people excited about it. I think tying in excitement around health is the best thing you can do for it. Instead of making it seem like a dreary thing you have to work hard for, and it takes a lot of energy. It's like, no, really, just stick to the basics, stick to the foundations, right? In my program right now, I'm really big on 6 pillars, and they're real simple and straightforward, and it's just embodying, a really step-by-step program where it's mindset and purpose, harnessing that mindset and purpose first, understanding your core values. What do you want in your life, your unique life? What do you want for the greater good? And then we go into nutrition and gut health, to schedule, sleep, and stress, to weight training and movement, to nature and sun. And then we dive into the connection, the community, and brotherhood, because I primarily work with men. And so it's really just making stuff simple AF, because if you make it too complex, people are like, whoa, I don't want to know about this stuff. It's just too much work. So that's hopefully I didn't go down a rabbit hole there, but hopefully that answered your question, Sam.
I don't think you went down a rabbit hole. I think that brought the conversation to an even more interesting place. I think what's so interesting about what you were just talking through, Christian, and Sam and I have talked about this many times on Elevation Nation, is that in reality, yes, we all want to be healthy. We all want to look good. We want to feel good. But what has happened in society? It's 2022. There's this thing called instant gratification. And when instant gratification hits you in the face, the beautiful thing about instant gratification is you can go and grab it when you want it, where you want it. And sometimes, or should I say most of the time, as young adults, maybe people who are just graduating college and they're just making $1 for the first time in their life, or maybe down the road have more freedom or time than ever before, they forget about what matters the most, and it's your health. Without your health, you have nothing. And the thing that is blinding that is going getting that Chick-fil-A. Oh, I'll just go to the store and eat that Pop-Tart because it tastes good, the sugary, the sweet, strawberry, whatever. Tastes good. Tomorrow I'll put off the salad. Or, you know what? Tomorrow I won't go to the gym. I think personally, the things that you're talking about in these pillars of, holistic wellness, it is difficult to have all of them in balance, because for most young adults, and, I'm not speaking for everyone, I just think for most, it's hard to understand where you fit in that and how you should go about where to start.
That is some fire right there. It's so true. It's like, where do I begin when there's so many things laid out in front of me? So the best part is you could just pick up any card on the table, any of them, and just start with that. It could be fitness. It could be nutrition. Just start simple. Start somewhere. It could be socializing more. Let's say it's been the past 2 years with this COVID madness. We all been secluded a lot more. We haven't had as much vibrancy in relationships. Maybe take the time to get linked up with an old buddy. Hop on a call with someone. We got crazy technology right now with Zoom, right? I know it's not being able to get the oxytocin release from hugging someone, but at least you can have a conversation as a human being. So I'd say just start in one of the wellness dimensions. Look that up, guys. You'll have a firm grasp, and pick one of those things. It could be hiking every day. It could be just getting a little bit more nature, right? Start small, make that the habit, and over time, as you integrate that in your life, it'll be fully in there, full time. And then you just move on to the next little goal, the next little tidbit to focus on. And then you just keep going from there. And before you know it, you got everything balanced, just like that.
We had a guest recently, Christian, on the podcast who is a Paralympic athlete. And his mental motto that he shared with us was one day or day one. And that resonated with me, and hearing you just talk now is you don't have to know all the answers. In fact, know none of them, but start somewhere to learn and grow and push yourself outside the comfort zone. And over time, you will build that up. And I think we all know that the first step is the scariest, the most intimidating, the one that you think about the most, the one that you teeter back and forth on. But once you actually start and you take that first step, it's easier from there on out. So I love that. Just start somewhere. You never know what that first thing will lead to. So I think that's incredible.
It's like sometimes I'm thinking about, like, I'm going back to this Pop-Tart. I'm just like, Pop-Tarts are dope. Like, they're great.
Yeah, they're great.
Like, red meat, for example. Like, I love red meat. I eat a ton of red meat. But I know that red meat is really not good for my heart and really not good for my body. And I've always just been, a sucker because it tastes so good. So it's like that balance. It's like, dang, do I want this gratification? Because I know this is going to taste so good and juicy. And yeah. And then
Parker, going off, we can go down a little rabbit hole again.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's talk about
I had red meat
Perfect.
all the time, man. I have red meat all the time. Okay. And I think it's better than poultry. Personally, I think there's something about chicken, turkey, and those kind of things. White meat is devoid of a lot of nutrients that red meat carries, especially grass-fed meat. If you're going to get red meat, I highly recommend pasture-raised. If you can get pasture-raised, that's great. If you can't, it's still going to be nutritious. The thing is, red meat they feed on grass. This grass gets converted into omega-3s in their tissue, especially if it's grass-fed. This goes back to that. But if they're grain-fed, they're feeding on soy, they're feeding on corn, and it makes them a little bit more inflamed. So their gut isn't designed by nature to consume the abundance of those grains. Mother Nature made it to where they consume grass and grass only for the most part. And so when humans try to modify this and try to make industrial farming, make a ton of it by factory farming, right? It's awesome. We get more food, wonderful, but these animals are not living good lives. They're basically it's an autoimmune disorder that's arising in them. And so we pump them with antibiotics to prevent them from getting sick because they're feeding on something that makes them sick. It'd be like human beings, for instance, eating the grass outside. Yeah, we get some nutrients from it, chlorophyll and things, but that is not meant for us to eat all the time. And then we start getting sick, and then we're like, oh shit, we're getting sick. Let's take some antibiotics that'll help out with that. And it's a constant loophole. 80% of the antibiotics on the entire U.S. that are prescribed are to animals, are to straight up these crazy feeding lots and all these cows and these chickens and things. And so number one thing you could start with organic meat, start with pasture raised, and then it's a lot more healthy right there. If you can't get that, it's still okay. Red meat's still going to be way more nutritious in many ways to poultry. Poultry is higher in omega-6s. That could be a little bit more inflammatory than the omega-3s, which are found in red meat. And overall, red meat's very low inflammatory. Yeah, there's issues with saturated fat, in quotations, but saturated fat's not your enemy, and that's another stigma that's been broken many times is, a lot of plant-based diets are advocating against red meat and all these, animal-based foods, but it's about balance here, guys. So I'm a huge omnivore. I love plants. I love animals. I'm a big flexitarian. I'm very flexible with my diet. So some days I prefer animal foods. I'll have sardines. I'll have, red meat. I'll have grass-fed beef. I'll have deer meat because I'm here in Arkansas, so there's access to some of that from some relatives. And, it's all about balance, eating intuitively here. So if you find that you're craving some red meat, maybe your body truly needs that. It's about listening to listening to hunger versus appetite, right? Appetite's related to the Pop-Tart. It's like a craving that's not necessarily good for you. But if it's hunger, it's like, wow, biologically, my body's actually wanting this for its cells. And so I strongly believe in red meat. I think it's super nutritious, especially organ meats and those kind of things. But I think you're A-OK, Parker, if you love your red meat. Just balance it out with some good plants.
No, I'm just...
You left out a huge piece of your trauma with red meat, Parker, where I think we have to fill in Christian. We have to give him the full story.
I wasn't gonna go
I went there.
What happened?
All right,
I went there.
All right, so Christian, long story short, I am in New York at the beach, family, not with family, with very close friends, almost family. And my friend's mother was cooking up, you know, a nice steak, whatnot, had a few beers before eating, and sat down, and I was so hungry. And the steak was like a little undercooked, and I cut too big of a piece, shoved it in my mouth, ate way too quickly. And what happens when you can't chew a piece of steak and you suck it down too quickly? It gets lodged in the throat. So I stand up at the table. I'm like, you know, the universal sign for choking is put your hands on your throat. And everyone's like laughing, like, what's he doing? And then everyone's like, holy shit, he's choking. And my friend had to give me the Heimlich.
God.
Friend's parents' beautiful kitchen. I threw up everywhere, all over the dinner table. And what was pretty crazy about the situation is that I was able to breathe again, but the piece of steak was so fucking big that it actually never came out of my mouth. It got lodged in my trachea, which is the, I guess,
the air
not
pipe. Whatever you want to call it.
It's not the air pipe. Whatever the other thing was. The esophagus. Sorry.
Oh, right. The esophagus.
It was lodged in the trachea, gives me a Heimlich, and then it got, I guess it flipped over, bounced over into my esophagus, and it was stuck. What do you do when it gets stuck? Everyone's like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Couldn't eat any food, couldn't drink any food, drink anything. And call 911. They're like, you'll be fine, take some salt, whatever, maybe whatever. Never. I'm like, all right, I gotta go to the hospital because I don't want to eat again. Rushed me to the hospital, and I had a procedure literally at 2 a.m. to get this piece of steak lodged out.
Oh, man.
It was so big.
See, there was a little bit of trauma behind that we needed to at least unpack for Christian, so you can have some context. I'm sorry to make you relive that, Parker, but that story is just too good. We're glad you're here. And Parker then made all of his friends learn CPR and the Heimlich, so you did a service for the rest of the community, Parker. So that was beautiful. I love that. Christian, I think...
Saved my life, bro. People die.
I agree, man.
I'm joking. It's a thing, man.
Hey, I guess
thing.
What's the moral of the story there, Parker? What's the moral of the story?
Cut your steak.
Yeah, chew your food.
Chew intentionally.
Chew intentionally.
Right, there we go.
That's exactly it. So, Christian, with obviously, you know, diet is being a big part of balance and holistic wellness. Parker and I have focused a little bit more on the mindset piece of wellness. And I'm actually reading a book right now called 10% Happier, which I highly recommend. It's a super interesting one on mindfulness. But I was curious what, you know, spiritual or mindfulness practices you have in addition to, I know you do fitness and obviously you do nutrition as well. But what about the mind stuff? What are you interested in these days?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, everything you do in life starts with the mind. It all starts with this decision making. And so, you know, I'll just start off with like my morning routine. That'll give you a grasp on what I kind of go about with mindfulness. I wake up and I like to meditate in bed before I even get up. I like to, you know, let's say my alarm goes off on my phone. I keep it off. I don't even look at it. Keep that on the side, and I typically just like to breathe and just kind of like sit in the bed for 5 to 10 minutes, kind of get back in my body and just kind of feel things out. And after that, I kind of just go through in my mind's eye and what I have for the day, what I want to accomplish, why I'm here on this planet, just asking those kind of questions, like what am I? You know, just things like that, real philosophical things, and that helps me get a grasp on like, you know, literally my core values. It goes back to those core values. Like if you can create that purpose statement, guys, it's so much easier to go about daily life and understand that all the holes that you dig yourself in or you fall into, it's easier to get out of those holes when you have that purpose statement and you have that in alignment to your highest self. And so get out of bed. My favorite place to meditate is in cold therapy. So about once a week, I do a plunge, especially during these winter months, into a river around here. There's a freshwater river, fresh spring. And yeah, I lay in that water. I jump in and do some Wim Hof breath work. And it's around 3 to 5 to 8 minutes in there, depending on how cold it is. Like last week or like 4 days ago, I went in it. It was 20. It was 28 degrees out. The water was like 38. It was pretty crazy. So it feels amazing, man. Like that cold therapy helps me get more mindful. It makes me understand that this physical body is finite, but my soul is infinite. So I just tap into that infinite source. I know this sounds all woo-woo. You guys are like, what the hell is this guy saying? But once you try this stuff out, it is crazy how it feels. It's so
We're fans
interesting.
of Wim Hof.
Right. He's great. I think that breath hold is what really helps me get mindful, because it just dissipates all the stressors in my life, all that crazy stuff I have to think about, all the tasks, all the things I have to catch up on this tech. And it makes me just like center myself in that breath hold. And I'm just like, wow, this is such a blissful experience. So about daily, I take that cold shower, do these breath holds. Once a week, I do the cold submersion. That helps tremendously with my mindfulness. And I think the next thing is breaking habits that I catch myself doing. So let's say I'm on my phone for too long, or I catch myself just working too much on my phone or technology. I'm like, wow, I really knew I needed to read at this point. So what I'll do is instantly, if I come to that recognition, I'll turn off the phone and I'll immediately, instantaneously pick up the task I want to start working on, the habit I want to start working on, the good habit. So I have these bad habits I catch myself doing in the spot. Stop doing that right away, immediately replace it with another habit. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, because you're like, okay, why would you do that right at that moment? But over time, it's training your brain to start utilizing those muscles in those moments for the right things. And so right now I'm reading this book called The Way of the Superior Man. I don't know if you guys have read it before, but it's like 20 years old. It's an incredible book. The subtitle, I know a lot of you guys listening to this right now will relate. A spiritual guide to mastering the challenges of women, work, and sexual desire. So, man, at our age, our testosterone's going up. We're constantly trying to find our workflow. It is super helpful. This book is incredible. There's a lot of Stoic philosophies in there. And, while we're talking about Stoicism, this is another mindset thing right now. Stoicism is basically not having an overwhelming emotional attachment to anything. It's having emotion, but it's not having an overwhelming emotional attachment to anything. So it's basically allowing your body, allowing your mind to go through the ebbs and flows of life and understanding it is what it is. It is what it is. And not holding or fixating too much on it and dwelling yourself into it to where you start having emotional turmoil erupt, and then you're just not thinking logically. So it's kind of tying in logic with emotion and going about life that way. Marcus Aurelius, there's a really cool quote I have. It's so profound. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, so it goes like this. In your actions, don't procrastinate. In your conversations, don't confuse. In your thoughts, don't wander. In your soul, don't be passive or aggressive. In your life, don't be all about business. So basically, it's just allowing yourself to go through the ebbs and flows of life, and don't allow yourself to get caught in momentums that are not of your highest self. We have this beautiful mind that we can have such profound intuition, and it's hard to get that intuition when we have this instant gratification you brought up earlier, Parker. So tapping into that intuition that deep rooted in you, that is the coolest part about living life, because you'll definitely have a lot more success. So those mindfulness practices have helped immensely.
I think mindfulness is got to be some of the hardest of all of the pieces to the holistic wheel. I mean, it's so funny the way I think about it sometimes. It's like we're thinking we're doing all day, right? We're going here, we're going there, we're eating this, we're talking to this person, we're, gravitating to our phones. We a lot of times are on like cruise control. But bringing yourself back to yourself and being mindful and self-aware of the moment, where you're at, how you feel, how you maybe feel pretty bad about something, how you feel good about something. Taking that step back is difficult too. It's a challenge. And we're constantly, every day. I mean, you're talking about your phone. Like, how many times do you pick up your phone and you don't even realize you're looking at it for 20 minutes? But getting to the habit, whoa, you know what? I've been on my phone for 20 minutes. Probably should shut off and chuck it across the room and hope it breaks. Just kidding. That wouldn't be good. But finding that nudge to bring it back to yourself has, for me personally, been a big difference maker in my mindfulness journey.
What about you, Sam? What are some of the mindfulness practices you've incorporated?
Yeah, I'll speak to one. Again, I'm very much whatever book I'm reading is like the first thing that pops in my mind. So going back to this 10% happier thing, I was reading Parker earlier today, actually, Christian, a quote from it that I think was hilarious. It said, if you have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, all you do is piss on the present. And I was like, wow. But that's how we live our entire lives. Thinking about what if, what could have been, what happened, what could happen, what should happen, how will I feel? Have we ever just sat in the moment and said, this is happening, this is how I feel, I smell this, I taste this, I'm talking about this, and I'm here right now, not thinking about anything else, not thinking about the next question I'm going to ask Christian, not thinking about making sure my sound's okay, not thinking about what am I going to have for dinner later. What about right now? And the harsh reality for most of our world is no, we don't think like that. And while I'm not going to sit here and preach that we can do that all day, and when we practice mindfulness and meditation, we can totally revamp with enough practice, sure. But I think each of us can try to be a little bit more self-aware to live in the moment. Take a second and take a breath in, smell, taste, appreciate that moment, and then you can move on to the future or the past. But try every day to at least be present for a couple seconds. And that's what I've really been practicing and trying to do. Just once a day, know where I'm at, right? Otherwise, it's just go, go, go.
Hey,
you guys
and also
familiar?
just don't take a piss on the present, bro. Like, that's disrespectful.
Right, there you go. Exactly, man. Have you guys heard of the dopamine detox? I'm sure you guys are aware of this.
No. Enlighten us, man. I've never heard of it.
Oh, yeah, enlighten us.
Okay, so, of course, most of us know about dopamine, and it's basically that feel-good hormone. So if we can get more dopamine, we're going to feel really good about something, right? It happens when we eat some really savory, delicious food. It could be that bite of cake you've had. It could be that that flashing color you see on TikTok if you're scrolling through that kind of stuff. If you're, anything along those lines that immediately makes you feel like instant gratification, going back to that, Parker, it immediately lights up your brain with all these feel-good hormones. Now, this is addicting. Dopamine's extremely addicting. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we can be addicted to the wrong things that are filled with dopamine. And so one way to reverse that and tap into habits that are filled with, uplifting things, for instance, reading a book can be hard for a lot of the generation right now. Reading a book, or it could be, researching, it could be studying something that deep down is fun, something that requires a little bit more work that doesn't give you that dopamine rush, or journaling even, right? Things like that. So how do we get those things to be fun? How do we get dopamine from those kind of things, that reward center of the brain? Well, we go on a dopamine detox. And I've done this before. It's been a while, to be honest. I'm probably in due time for one. But the best way to go about it is limiting time on your phone. That's like the number one thing you can start doing. Limiting time on technology. And then when you have that time to twiddle your thumbs, you're like, what can I do now? I'm feeling kind of anxious because I don't have this instant gratification. Feel into that anxious feeling. Feel into that uncomfortableness. And that feeling right there can be transferred into something that will give you a dopamine rush, even to the slightest degree, a little pinprick of it. So journaling is one of my favorite ways to go about that. Putting the emotions down on the paper, putting that metaphysical into a physical format so you can remember it more. You can put those emotions down into something you can visualize, right? And so dopamine detoxing is incredible. You can look it up. There's a lot of different things out there online that you can follow. The way I went about it about a year ago was the phone situation. It was limiting myself to an hour on my phone a day. It was, cutting away anything at night that was stimulatory. It was making sure that I wasn't getting coffee. Coffee causes a little bit of dopamine as well, and caffeine. And it was doing things that would lift it naturally, like exercise, right? Working out, getting sunshine gives you dopamine. So things that are healthy, that are very awesome for your body, those are the dopamine things you want to activate. So that's kind of a dopamine detox right there in a very vague sense. But like I said, do some research on it. It's pretty profound.
I love that. I think everyone at some point, again, going back to balance and resetting, sometimes we need to take a step back, reset from everything that is around us. And it sounds like this dopamine detox is one way that you can do that. And again, we now have figured out our bodies, our minds, our souls, our brains better than ever before. We might as well use that information of knowing what gives us dopamine, what doesn't, that if we detox from it, smaller triggers that are more natural will actually act them up. It's like, let's use this science and this cool technology that we have to help us feel happier and healthier. So I absolutely love that. I'm going to have to try a detox, maybe on a week off of work. I can get away from technology for once in my life. That would be lovely. So Christian, I want to move on to our next section, man, which is our rapid fire section here. So we got a couple questions for you. First thing that pops into your mind, we'd love to hear the answer. So I will start it off. What is your favorite book of all time?
My favorite book? What's that Joe Dispenza title? I don't know why I'm blanking on it. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was a big transformational book back in the day. Read that right out of high school. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's all about neuroscience and how to go about your life in ways that, going back to the habits, going back to dopamine. It's transferring a lot of the habits you don't align with to your highest self and building those new ones that help you build that fortitude forward. So Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself was a great one.
Love that term, fortitude. Elevation Nation. Pretty, you've heard that before. Cool. I just wrote it down in my Goodreads account, and I hit want to read. Now it's there. Looks dope. Next question, rapid fire. Top 3 foods of all time on your list, interchangeably. What's like 1 through 3? It doesn't need to be top, but top 3.
Okay. I hate you for this because I'm such a I'm such a variety guy. Okay. I'll start off. So we'll start off with more of a protein kind of fat base. So I would say, we talked about it already. I would say grass-fed beef and organ meats. I'll put those in the same category. Grass-fed beef and organ meats. Those are so nutrient dense. You want to get those because loaded up with so many essential nutrients. They're basically nature's multivitamin. Very bioavailable, which means they absorb very well in the gut, so you don't have to worry about any kind of issue with that. Extremely low inflammatory. And not only that, but they're loaded up with protein, satiating, keep you full. They'll rebuild your body and your tissue. So that's number 1. Number 2, let's go into some antioxidants. Blueberries. I love blueberries because they're loaded up with anthocyanins. These are a type of antioxidant. They're great for your brain. Gives you a ton of brain juice. So if you can have a cup or 2 of blueberries every single day, that's wonderful. I would say the key, though, is get organic. They're heavily sprayed in pesticides. I know they're a lot more expensive. They're like $2 to $3 more per bag. But I'm telling you, in the long run, unless you want glyphosate, a horrible weed killer known as Roundup, one of the main compounds in Roundup, it's going to destroy your gut. It's going to cause a lot of neurological issues and possibly cancer in the long run. So avoid the sprayed ones and get organic as much as possible. So blueberries is number 2. Number 3 that comes to mind would be, son of a bitch. Let's see here. Man,
you gotta shoot us with a dessert. You just got it.
Okay,
something sweet, something
sweet and savory. So can it be a single food, or is this like a kind of a mashup of something?
I'll let you take it where you want to go.
Okay. Man, why is this so hard right now? I ate so much food already. I would say, we have the organ meats, we have the blueberries. Let's get some more fiber in here to feed the gut. So something along those lines. I would say spirulina or chlorella. Now this isn't sweet. I know, Parker, this isn't what you wanted, man. But these spirulina and chlorella. So these are superfoods. All the things I just mentioned, guys. If you can get these on a daily basis, you're going to live a long and energized life. Now they kind of have, not to turn you off, a slight fishy kind of taste. But if you can override that, knowing that it's so nutrient dense for you, you can put it in smoothies. You can make it to where you don't really taste it. It's a great way to fill in vitamin A, vitamin K, chlorophyll, which is so important because chlorophyll, if you look at the chemistry of it, it is virtually identical to hemoglobin of the blood. So you look inside of chlorophyll, and chlorophyll, the middle of it is magnesium. Okay? Everything else chemically is the same. Now you look at hemoglobin of the blood, the middle of it is iron. And so when you consume chlorophyll-rich foods such as spirulina and chlorella, which are derived from the coast of California and Hawaii, there are these algae, right? We take them out of the oceans and we dry them out. We turn them into a fine powder that's super dark green, and they are loaded up in this chlorophyll. And this is basically going to clean out your blood. It's going to give you so much vital energy source. And so that, along with the chelating effect. So chelating is anything that can bind to bad things in the body. So they're great binders of heavy metals, like chlorella especially, and they're binders of a lot of toxins. And so I would say those guys, if you can get those, that is a phenomenal way to go about life. And it's not really a food, but it's a food. I
just learned something new. I mean, that was dope.
I'm about to go make an organ meat blueberry spirulina smoothie right now and just knock all of those out. I am ready to try them.
Jeez, man.
Those are great.
What were those, Sam? What were those pills that Dylan had earlier?
Oh, our buddy, he was having organ meat pills that he was taking.
Great, yeah.
Grass.
I supplement with that too.
So, yeah, I think actually you might be an affiliate for one of those, Christian. If you check out your website at cvcwellness.com, you have some affiliations with some pretty cool products out there. So Elevation Nation, feel free to check it out. All right. Another rapid fire question for you. What is your favorite or go-to exercise?
That's a good one. Okay, I immediately, my brain went to functionality, right, for the general population. So I'm not going to say bench press. I'm not going to say, like pull-ups. Pull-ups are great, actually. But I would say just being able to, especially I'm sure a lot of men are listening to this, I would recommend something getting your hips right. Because a lot of us guys, we're so upper body, torso dominant. We're so strong in our traps, we're strong in our chest, our back. We tend to neglect those damn hips. And so if you're going to work on an exercise on a daily basis, it's not going to be something that you want to do all the time, because it's kind of something you got to meditate with. It's something that's not like, oh, I'm brute force putting all my muscle towards it. It's like, no, this is going to work intricate muscles that it's going to be fun in the long run because you'll see a lot of momentum with it. But I would say what comes to mind is these side steps. So working laterally. So we have the ability to work in many different chains, many different momentums, right? We can walk forward, we can walk side to side, we can like transverse, move in a transverse plane, we can move into many different planes, right? That's what I meant to say is planes. I don't know why I was blanking on it, but so lateral plane is something we neglect quite a bit because we're always walking forward and sometimes walking back, but it's important to walk side to side. And so if you can get a band that can go in between the bottom of your feet, kind of near your ankles, like wrapped right around the ankles, a band around, the width of like a ruler, right? Diameter of a ruler. Get one of those bands, those small kind of glute bands they call them. Put that by the ankles and do side steps with them. Just slight side-to-side walks, right? And do it till it burns like hell in the hips. And you'll feel that little divot in the hip. If you guys even feel that now, you'll feel that little, like, we have a little kind of dimple in the hip. That's an area that's neglected. It's the gluteus medius and a bunch of other hip abductors, right? Abduction is moving away from the center. So if we can work those muscles, we're going to have less hip pain. We're going to have less back pain. It'll help a lot with back pain. And overall, just make us feel lighter on our feet and fix our gait, the way we walk, right? So that's just one exercise right there, along with clamshells. You can look up clamshells online as well. So side steps and clamshells.
Stability, baby.
That's amazing.
Balance.
Listen, Christian, you'd be happy with me. I was on the stair stepping thing the other day. I was just warming up, and I went sideways, which was dope. It was hard.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
it was hard, and people are looking at me like, "Dang, he's going sideways." I'm still going forward. But yeah, I love that. All right, Christian, the last piece of the episode, we want to reveal your mental motto. This is a new segment that we've been starting. We've been doing it with a few people now, and Sam and I love it because it's just so cool to hear what people go by in their daily life. So, without a further ado, what's your mental motto?
This one's always stood the test of time in my life, and it's a simple phrase. To know and not do is to never truly know. We're in a constant information era where we're totally entrenched in information, knowing the latest thing that's out there, understanding how this operates, understanding that, right? It's all up here in the head. But if you aren't applying it, what good is it? If you aren't applying it in your daily life, if you aren't doing it, the thing that you know, what is the point? It just eats you alive over time. So to know and not do is to never truly know. To know and do, now that is really knowing right there. So that's one thing that's always stood in my heart and my head, is that if I'm obsessed about health optimization, health and wellness, and I'm coaching people, there can be an imposter syndrome that comes out of me if I'm not doing what I teach people to do or coach people to do or inform people about something that's great for them, right? There's also this layer of not practicing what you preach, right? Where it's like you're that person that's all about, I know I should go down this trajectory, but I had a lot of nutrition teachers that they were drinking Diet Cokes. They were overweight. They were not healthy. And they were teaching us kids about nutrition, and it just blew my mind in college. I'm like, I don't want to take shit from this person. I'm sorry. Not to be rude, but just in the aspect of like, where's the vitality coming from you? All I see is that you're kind of irritated all the time, and you're tired, and you're kind of rude. That doesn't make me want to do what you're doing. It just shows that you know a lot, but you aren't applying it. So to know and not do is to never truly know.
These are why these are so cool, man. Parker, I'm so glad we started this segment because, Christian, you're going to get added to our wall of fame, our mental mottos from previous guests. We're going to blow this up on social media, but it's like every time someone says something of their mental motto, it's so cool and so unique, and I couldn't agree more, right? We have information overload at our fingertips. If you really wanted to, you could learn pretty much anything, pretty much out there with enough time. But if you don't act on it, you don't really embody it and do something with it, what is the point of learning all this stuff? And I need to work on that myself too. I'm reading all these crazy books, mindfulness, health, wellness. Read The Omnivore's Dilemma as well, Christian, which I'm sure is one that you love too.
Yeah.
And I got to act a little bit more on these things. I'm educating in them now, but what does that get me if I don't do? So I love that, man. That is beautiful. That is why we do these mental mottos. What a way to close out just an enlightening, holistic, balanced episode with Christian Van Camp of CVC Wellness. I had a blast, man. I hope you did too. It was awesome to get to know you a little bit better and hear your story. And I know you inspired Elevation Nation, and you're probably going to get some people hitting you up. So check Christian out at cvcwellness.com. But seriously, man, on behalf of Parker and myself, truly appreciate you coming and hanging out with us for an evening.
I appreciate you guys. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. Rambled on a little bit, but hopefully you guys got some insight out of it. And the main thing to consider just going forward is don't be hard on yourself. I am so freaking hard on myself, and I'm not perfect. Going off the to know not do to never really know. I do the wrong things all the time, and I know a lot, but I don't apply it a lot. And so the more we get hard on ourselves, we're just going to lose that momentum. So get hard on yourself a little bit, then move forward, pull up your pants, and keep going.
I love it. That's beautiful. Elevation Nation. With that being said, until next week, peace. Yo, Christian, that was